Welcome. In the previous video in this series on short exposure development of astrophotos or single short exposure astrophotos, I demoed the use of the free Windows photo gallery and its editor in Windows. Today I'm going to show you the equivalent in the MacBook, which is iPhoto. And I'm not sure, you'll have to Google this, I should have done before this video, whether you can actually get that for PC as well. But certainly the version I've got here, which comes with the Mac, is perhaps more powerful than the Windows Photo Gallery. So I showed you the easiest one first, which was Windows Photo Gallery, and today it'll be iPhoto on the Mac. So, same shots as I took last time and the same naming convention. Just where my mouse is here, you can see X1 means a single shot, S30 means a 30-second shot, I800, ISO 800, and this particular object was M42. I used these two in the Windows Photo Gallery test, M8 and M42. I've added M20, M21, but it's a single 8-second ISO 3200 shot. So it's got a lot of noise and very little what's called signal, as you'll see when we load that into iPhoto. So without further ado, I'll start iPhoto. Its concept is that you edit these things non-destructively. You import them into iPhoto, leaving them in their untouched state back on disk. You change them in iPhoto and then you export them in their changed state, with all the changes you've applied, back down onto disk. So the first thing you've got to do is import them. So here's the import to library, and I've navigated previously to the folder where these photos were, iPhoto tests. So if you just highlight them all and import, up they come. Now at the top here you can see it says an untitled event. You can edit that and leave it as an event for, say, Astro 2016 1001 or whatever the date was that you took them. Or you can go up here to File and create a new album called Astro or whatever it is, and drag and drop them into that album. To be honest with you, I've only ever left them as events. The important thing is we're now about to edit these photos, and you can see down here where the mouse is, there's an edit pencil. So if I click that, it brings up a film strip up the top left, as well as showing all three photos in here. Okay, so if I click that, second photo, third photo, etc. Okay. But the interesting thing here is if I want to particularly adjust a photo, I'm just going to click Done because it's brought all three in. We'll choose the same one we did last time, which was this first one, which was M8. So it's highlighted, ready to go. So Edit, and here's the important tool right down here, Adjust. Same sort of deal, brings up a film strip, but now with the three photos in your event and just the one photo that you click on. If I click on this one, it'll show the M20, and as I said before, this is actually the Trifid Nebula here with its beautiful reds and blues. It's such a single 8 seconds, such a short exposure, it's got very little data to work with. And this is M21, the cluster just below it. This next shot is the one you were familiar with the Windows Photo Gallery video, which is M42. So back onto this one, we're going to edit it. Okay, if you click this Adjust tool, it comes up. I might just move it over to the left, purely so I can keep everything on the right hand side there. Okay, now the Windows Photo Gallery had that very easy workflow where this tool opened on the right hand side of Photo Gallery, with step 1 being exposure, contrast, highlights and shadows, and then once you clicked out of that, step 2 was right underneath it in that menu, and it was to do with color saturation, color temperature and tint. Step 3 in Windows Photo Gallery was to crop or straighten. And because all of those introduce noise, the last step in the workflow, step 4 in that original Windows Photo Gallery demo, was to increase sharpness and denoise. So it doesn't have that same workflow prompt being the different order of the menus. In iPhoto, we have to actually just remember that process of clicking on shadows and highlights first, and then worrying about saturation and temperature and tint second, and then lastly, or third, cropping, and lastly, sharpness and denoising. Because all of the above introduce noise, the last thing you want to do is denoise, and then perhaps reduce exposure or raise the black point. So without further ado, we're in that same shot as we were with the Windows Photo Gallery demo, but we're using iPhoto. Same process though. First you want to tease out the detail that's hidden in this very short exposure black background, and you do that by shadows. So if I move it to the right, you can see it coming out on the right photo at the same time of moving. If I can see as I move a bit more nebulosity coming out in the black, I'll keep moving it. Otherwise, if I just see it getting brighter and no increase in nebulosity, I'll start moving it back to the left. That looks pretty good. Highlights is next. Highlights, anything bright, and obviously you don't want to over increase brightness or highlights because these stars will blow out. And to be honest with you, I'm just going to maybe leave it there. I'll try an adjustment. Increase to the right. No, I can see the stars are starting to blow out. I'll leave it there. So that's the first workflow. The second workflow is the colour. So saturation, which overall increases, as it says, the colour intensity of everything. And secondly, you've got temperature and tint down here should you wish to adjust those, but I'm just going to go saturation and just move that to the right a bit, and it looks pretty cool. The third thing we do is crop, which you have to close this tool down and go down here to crop if you wanted to. And once you've done that, get back into the adjustment tool and come for the last thing, which is sharpness and denoise. Same as before, I'm just going to try sharpness just a tad to the right. That'll do. And here's the biggie, denoising. Now this tool doesn't zoom in by default like the Windows Photo Gallery one. You've got to come over here and zoom in. And as you zoom, you can see that navigation pane open up. You just walk up here with your mouse, click, and drag it down to where you want, and you'll see in the background things moving around. Okay, and I can say probably about there is where I can see noise, especially down around here and in this nebulosity. I might go up just a tad, and I'll leave it there. Definitely can see it right here, noise. So I will now denoise, given I've zoomed in, and again a very, very good denoise tool. And I don't want to take it so far that I start, you want to take it as far as like there, so the mottled effect has pretty well disappeared from this area here. That's looking pretty good. So I'll zoom out now. Okay, and the last thing, just like we did with Photo Gallery, is then just try and dim the background down a little bit, either by exposure, increasing contrast. You can do that a little bit, but it does tend to reintroduce noise. Or, as I put a annotation in my previous video on Photo Gallery, you can increase the black point, which is over here. Okay, so I might just use the black point on this one. So I'm going to very carefully raise it to the right and look at the image. I don't want to see it missing or skipping all that nebulosity that we've teased out. So to be honest, that's not a bad photo right there. I may drop exposure just a tad because I can see that core of that nebulosity blowing out a little bit too bright. So I'll probably leave it like that. Okay, as a matter of fact I might take highlights back down here. Okay, looks good to me, so we'll shut down that. You come over here and click done. It will think about it like that. Okay, let's do the second one we did in the photo gallery demo, which is M42. Same process, do it a bit faster this time. Edit, adjust, smooth that across even a bit more. Shadows, let's tease out the shadow detail. Now I see the background getting brighter, but no betterment of the nebulosity. So I'll just leave it about there. Such a bright core, I don't really want to touch highlights. So saturation, I can raise that. That'll do. Alrighty. Let's denoise. Smooth that down a bit. You can see all this mottled effect here and around in that area here where the mouse is. So I will denoise watching those areas. See it? Beautiful. I actually think the denoise in this is better than photo gallery. Okay. Unzoom. Alright. Background. Probably try exposure just a tad down. And again. I might try the black point up slightly to get that background slightly darker. Probably going to leave it there. By the way, this middle one is also added to the iPhoto, and it's like a contrast, as it says there, the white point and the midtones of a photo. So this is black point. In other words, make the black stuff darker as I move it to the right. This is white point, make white stuff brighter as I move it to the left. And mid-tones, well, you can play around with this to your heart's content. Let's actually give it a bit of a go. If I move it to the left, you should see the mid-tones, nebulosity, increasing in brightness, but again the core might blow out. So I'm just moving it now. As against maybe that way. No, that's probably better leaving it this way. Okay. And I haven't got highlights going at all. No, it's good. Alright, so I may just try again with that contrast down a tad. Sorry, exposure. And I might just raise that black point up just a tad more. Here we go. Shut that down. Okay, done. And now the last image again is this really crazy, underdeveloped, and like I said, this is M21 and the Trifid's here somewhere, so let's edit that. It's ISO 3200, it will have lots of noise. Because the Trifid's here, I'm going to move that adjustment window over this side. Same process, bring out the detail and the shadows first. Probably about there. Highlights, don't want to blow the stars, but see if we can get a bit more. No, that's good enough. Quick look. Yeah, that's good enough. Next, the colour, saturation, etc. Let's try and bring out a bit more colour. Whoops, the stars are going artificially too red, so I'll drop it back a bit. And denoise. Now this will really be amazingly noisy. So let's just move that over to the left. Might just zoom in a little bit more. And you can see this nebulosity here is, and around these grey bits here, it's very, very speckled. So denoise, let's slowly do that and watch that noise disappear. I want to kind of see that nebulosity almost blur into a nice, you know, I can see it looks pretty good there. There's still a little bit of noise down here in the background, but the nebulosity around here is quite good. It's still a bit blurred here. I could try and denoise just a little more. Let's see what happens. So we're at 50, let's go a bit more. Yeah, it's actually probably better. Okay, so zoom out. Alright, and to be honest with you, that looks fine. I might just move this mid-tone level to the left and try and get a bit more. It's making the background a little bit too grey, so I'll drop that just a tad. Looks good. Shut that down and click done. Right, now with these you have to export because all these changes are only in iPhoto's library at this minute. So I will just highlight all of those and go up here to File and Export, Kind JPEG High, full size. This file name may be defaulted to use file name. Okay, if you go sequential, you can put in a term here, like this one, adjusted. Okay, and it will call it adjusted 1, 2 and 3, and it should ask me for the folder next. It does. Now I'm still in iPhoto tests, yes, so put them in there. Yep. Just wait for it to finish. There we go. Get out of there, and there they are. So M8 was first. This was the original. As a matter of fact, I can probably do this highlight and shift. Actually, I know what I can do. I'm just going to quickly change the names. Makes it easier to. This was M8, and the next one was M20, and the third one was M42. Okay, and it's sorted, adjusted first, unadjusted second. Okay, so if I open all of these in its little viewer, oops, do that again. Here we go. So that's it adjusted. I'll now click on the original shot. Back to adjusted. Quite an amazing difference. I mean, you can see nebulosity, quite smooth nebulosity right down here and around here. Little fine filaments, nice dust lanes, or lack of nebulosity. Quite amazing from that. Next one. We'll go M20 unadjusted first. Well, excuse me, you're flat out even seeing it. Here it is adjusted. And again, it's still noisy, you know. I could probably do a bit more with that noise. I was on 60%. be interesting to try it out a bit further. But considering it came from that, it's pretty staggering. Go down a bit further, unadjusted M42, and adjusted. And again, I've got a little bit too bright background here, I need to reduce it. But you get the gist. It is a very good program for adjusting. And differences from the free photo gallery that I've mentioned are twofold. One is I think the denoising is even better. And secondly, the histogram has the added mid-tone adjustments as well. So up to you. Certainly free with the MacBook, and another tool to adjust these short exposures. The next in the series, I'm actually going to look at Lightroom. It costs about $160 US, and there are some reasons that you might want to use Lightroom to do this. Of course, much steeper learning curve, many more things to click on, but again, there is a very simple workflow using auto adjustments which works very well for these very same Astro photos. So watch out for that, and yeah, obviously pick the one that you want to choose, and I'll produce that video as soon as I can. You guys can have a look at it and make your mind up. There, as I said before though, there are some benefits in Lightroom, such as, I'll give you the teaser now, you can set up all these changes that we do for a nebula at say ISO 800 30-second shots. The first automatic initial adjustments you can set up to automatically apply to every shot that comes into a folder. So you can set your camera up to lodge photos in a folder, have Lightroom open, and as soon as that shot enters, it's automatically imported into Lightroom with the automatic adjustments set, and you straight away get an image very close to this. It kind of like builds a record of your adjustments and applies them on import, provided your shots are all taken at ISO 830 seconds. The adjustments should be correct for all those images. Of course, it doesn't help if you come across a galaxy where you've got to go 60 seconds, but then you just build up a set of adjustments called ISO 860 seconds. And it doesn't help, of course, if you've then got huge light pollution in your area. What you might find as an adjustment where there is no light pollution, very dark skies area, you have to rebuild your little library of self-adjustments for your light polluted area. But once you've done that, and you don't need to do that for too many shots, if you standardise on ISO 1600 for all your shots, and 30 seconds and 60 seconds and maybe 45 seconds, you can build up an adjustment library very quickly. So that's the teaser for the next in the series, which will be about Lightroom.